is a veteran reporter who has worked as editor-in-chief of foreign policy, founded Politico magazine, and served as the Moscow bureau chief for the Washington Post. She now has a weekly column at The New Yorker. Please welcome Susan Glasser. Thanks for being here.
Thanks for having me.
I personally requested to have you on because I have read just about every column you have written in the last 3 years for The New Yorker. They're all called Letter from Washington, right?
Yes, I'm sorry. I know, it's a lot to take in. So.
No, it's great, because what I really like about them is I don't think there's anybody else out there who is, has the breadth of journalistic experience, who has the knowledge of what happens underneath a burgeoning autocratic regime, because you were one of the bureau chiefs, the Moscow bureau chiefs for the Washington Post, when Putin was rising to power in the early 2000s, and who also understands the norms that we're losing in our government than you. Every week is, I'm not going to say it's a cheerful column. You know, it's mildly refreshing. It's 90% water, 10% hemlock. It's not too bad. But you said you needed a term for the Trump effect, that the thing we're all feeling but have trouble naming. And you asked a friend to help you. Who helped you come up with this term?
Okay, so I have this wonderful friend, Constanta, who is German. And you know how people are always joking, there ought to be some kind of long German word for that, you know?
Yeah, there usually is.
Right, so I said, Constanta, is there a long German word for this sort of Trump soul sickness?
Yes.
And she said, no, but I'll make one up. So she made one up.
And it's Trump Regierungsschlamazelschmerz.
Yes. That second part is good, the schlamazel.
Schlamazelschmerz.
Yeah.
What is it? What does it mean?
I think that's technically Yiddish, actually. She might have thrown that in there.
Sure, it's a good combo. What does it mean?
Well, again, I don't actually speak German. As Trump, you got that?
Yeah.
Regierung is government. Schlamazel, it's what it sounds like, you know, craziness. And then Schmerz is like soul sickness. So it's like Trump, government, craziness, soul sickness.
What I like about that is that I get a constant feeling in the sort of gaslighting of America that the president is taking place, and along with the people sort of aiding and abetting him, is like some sort of spell is trying to be cast on us. Like some sort of weird, somewhat abusive spell is being cast on us, so we don't see reality anymore. We're being dragged into his insanity. When you were seeing the rise of Putin from 2000 to 2004 while you were in Moscow, was this happening then?
Well, you know, it's interesting. So you wouldn't think that there would be an overlapping expertise between being in Russia and being in Washington, and then throw in a Clinton impeachment. These things aren't supposed to go together in the same sentence, right? Mm-hmm. Vladimir Putin, the first 4 years, he did what all aspiring authoritarians do, what Erdogan did in Turkey, consolidate power, right? First, what do? You go after the journalists. They took over the independent television. You go after the parliament, and you make sure that it's a pocket parliament. You go after this. And, you know, there are some uncanny parallels. Trump seems to have the instincts of a natural-minded authoritarian, even though, of course, we have a very different history and institutions and culture. Thank goodness.
Now, you've been writing about the new phase of the presidency since the Senate acquittal. Who is post-impeachment Trump? Is it really different? Because my suspicion before this happened was people say, oh, but if he is not acquitted, the guardrails will be off. But I don't see that the guardrails have ever been on. Is he a different person post-acquittal now? Is he behaving in a different way?
Right. Well, so that is a great question. And actually, I saw that you said that before, and I thought, you know, he's going to challenge me on this. What's the answer? I went back and looked, and we are actually, you know, the frog being slowly boiled, you know that? Like, yeah. I think we're kind of boiled already, because I think we are slowly getting used to Trump doing things now that he never would have tried to do 3 years ago when he first came into office, 2 years ago. Since he's been acquitted, he's attacked Supreme Court justices, gone after not only a federal judge in the Roger Stone case, but the 4 women of the jury, the prosecutors who recommended the sentence and then quit. He has not only fired the acting director of national intelligence because a briefing about Russia was given to members of Congress, put in someone very unqualified for the job in an acting capacity, and then, just this week, he's named as the new Director of National Intelligence, the congressman who was disqualified by Republicans just a few months ago because he was lying on his resume. So the head of national intelligence is going to be someone who can't tell the truth about his own record. So we're used to something. Republicans are now endorsing him for the job that they refused to put him in just 6 months ago.
It's almost as if they don't want to know things.
Well, I don't think you need to speak to motives. I mean, I think that's one thing I've learned in, sort of 3 years of Trumpology. It's like Kremlinology. You don't actually have to get inside their head and know, does Donald Trump love Vladimir Putin? Just look at the crazy stuff that they're saying and doing. And so that's what I've tried to do, is to write it down on the theory that 20 years from now, we're all going to be saying, did this really happen?
I hope so. I hope 20 years from now we have that attitude, that we're not just in scuba gear in Midtown Manhattan. But you raise a good point. You raise a good point that we are the frogs slowly being boiled, and we become inured to some of the more shocking things that happens with the president. How do you maintain your fresh shock? Because every so often I have to metaphorically pull the car over, vomit into a ditch, and slap myself in the face and get back in, so I can sort of stay awake at the wheel. How do you stay freshly shocked by it?
It is kind of like looking at the eclipse of the sun, but without the glasses on every week. It's a really tough job. I know that, most people have tuned it out. I understand that. So if your job is to stare straight at it, we forget all the crazy stuff, right? Even the people whose job it is to pay attention. Do you remember when Donald Trump said he was going to buy Greenland?
Yeah.
He goes on his rallies all the time, and he attacks windmills, and he attacks
For causing cancer.
and toilets. He doesn't like modern toilets.
Right.
And you forget these things because it's too much to say that I should write about it all the time. But often, actually, that is what I do to get myself psyched up to write a column. I go back through the Twitter feed, and then, within a second, I'm ready to go.
Susan, thank you so much for being here. Lovely to have you on. Please keep it up. The New Yorker's Susan Glasser, everybody. We'll be right back.